Hey y'all, I'm Roommate, and welcome to the first movie of the 50 Shades of Horror series. We begin our journey with Hocus Pocus. While I suppose that the protagonist of this 1993 Disney film is Max Dennison, the stars of the show are really the movie's antagonists, the Sanderson sisters. These three witches are Winnie, short for Winifred, Mary, and Sarah. Now, while the 50 Shades of Horror series is focusing on scariness, by design, the first few choices are going to be very light on horror, with Hocus Pocus being the lightest of all. In fact, the movie is usually described as a family fantasy comedy, but I will maintain that this is a horror film, just one with the least amount of fear as possible. If you haven't seen it, you can watch it first on Disney Plus in 4K. Share this video with your friends and family to get them to join us on this deep dive into the horror genre. What makes this movie so great? It's definitely the performances. Winnie, Mary, and Sarah are an amazing comedy trio. Winnie is the temperamental leader, a master spellcaster and potion brewer, the brains behind the operation, but also the most belligerent and dramatic.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, cruel world.
Bye-bye, cruel world.
Goodbye to life.
Bye-bye, life.
Goodbye.
While Mary's contribution to the team is her ability to smell children, yeah, it's freaking weird, but let's go with it. Her role in the comedy is to play the submissive underling seeking her older sister's approval.
Oh, do you want to hit me? Does that cheer you up? Okay.
Sarah is the dopiest of them all, constantly forgetting what is going on and whipping herself into frenzies over whatever tickles her fancy at the moment.
People.
Though she does have the ability to summon the children with her songs. Their dynamic reminds me a lot of the Three Stooges. Winnie being Mo, Mary being Larry, and Sarah being Curly. That's not to say it's a direct recreation, because the sisters each have countless unique mannerisms and don't lift anything in particular from the Stooges, but the comparison is mostly to illustrate that these actresses have given brilliant performances here that should qualify them as comedy legends. We begin the movie in 1693, in the witchiest of cities, Salem, Massachusetts. On Halloween morning, we see Thackeray Binks awaken and discover the Sanderson sisters have kidnapped his little sister Emily. While he goes to free her, he is ultimately foiled by the sisters who succeed in stealing Emily's soul. They punish Thackeray by making him an immortal black cat so that he would never get over the guilt of letting his sister be killed. Yeah, we're 10 minutes into the movie and an innocent child is killed and another is served a fate worse than death. Grim. We get some sense of justice, however, when the sisters are captured by the townsfolk and subsequently hanged. But before they are, Winnie casts a spell so that if a virgin lights the black flame candle on Halloween, they will be born again. Yeah, this movie has a strange preoccupation with virginity for a family movie.
A virgin will summon us.
Lit by a virgin on Halloween night.
When I knew some airhead virgin might light that candle.
Brave little virgin who lit the candle. I'll be thy friend.
And he's a virgin.
Come here. Are you a virgin?
Yeah.
Really?
It feels right that Arcane Magic would care about purity, but I just expect that the creators wouldn't want to be responsible for the awkward conversations that 8-year-olds would want to have with their parents after watching it. At least my parents thought it was awkward. But after the hanging, we realize that this scene has been a dramatization of a teacher's lesson on the sisters. This calls the reliability of the narrator into question. A doubtful take is exactly how Max introduces himself to the audience, saying that Halloween was just
Invented by the candy companies.
But his commercialism indictment is cut short by Allison, who sets him straight on the holiday's true origins. He must be impressed because he gives her his number in front of the whole class. After class, we see that things aren't going so great for Max. For one, Allison hands him back his own phone number. I gotta say that I really dig that the movie goes out of its way to portray Allison as smart and hard to impress. His family is from LA, so some bullies pick on him, calling him Hollywood, and steal his shoes. He goes home to fantasize about Allison, but his little sister Danny spooks him by jumping out of the closet and mocks him. Even though he's a big kid now and he's so over Halloween, his parents say that he has to go trick-or-treating with his sister. While he does get bullied again, it turns out that it isn't all bad, because he winds up over at Allison's house. Allison's family is bougie as fuck. They've got powdered wigs, fancy pantaloons, and even tricorn hats. Max tries to play it cool, but Danny starts meddling with Allison. She starts by complimenting Allison's dress, but then says,
Of course, I couldn't wear anything like that because I don't have any, what do you call them, Max? Yabos? Max likes her yabos. In fact, he loves them.
pretty sneaky, sis. Allison redirects the conversation, but doesn't seem too put off by it. All right, Max, you've got a chance. So as Allison and Danny talk about the Sanderson witches, Max says that Allison could make him no longer skeptical if they went to the sisters' old house. So they leave the party. At the Sandersons' house, Max lights the candle to prove that it's not real. Except he's wrong. It is real. They've started a Viridian rave in the basement, and then the Sanderson sisters show up. They try hiding, but Mary sniffs out Danny. To Danny's credit, she tries to play off her costume as if she's a fellow witch, joining in on their laughter even when the sisters have her tied up. Max jumps out of hiding to save her, but Winnie proves her devotion to the dark side and uses force lightning to disable him. Allison breaks their concentration with a whack of a broom, and she gets back up from a black cat. Max gets a clever idea to make the witches believe that the sprinkler system being triggered by a lighter is actually a magic spell of his own. This tricks them for long enough that Max can steal back their spell book, then Allison, Danny, Max, and the cat all bounce. After the witches realize
It is but water! Most refreshing.
they pursue the younglings, but pause when they think they've found a black river. Winnie sacrifices Sarah, pushing her into it, but it's firm. Once they realize they can walk on it, they walk lockstep in the most badass strut that the sisters can. Honestly, the whole movie could just be 90 minutes of them walking like this and I'd be happy. The cat reveals himself as Thackeray Binks.
He talks.
He's lived these 300 years trying to protect people from the witches. We get a bunch of exposition from Binks and Winnie about how this night will go. If the witches can steal another soul, they'll come back forever. But if the sun comes up before that, the black flame spell will be undone and the witches will go back to hell. The exposition dump is stopped by the witches' attack. They summon a zombie, Billy Butcherson. Apparently Billy was
Winifred's lover, but she found him sporting with her sister Sarah, so she poisoned him and sewed his mouth shut with a dull needle.
Max is able to temporarily behead Billy with a tree branch, and the four of them make their way under the cemetery. While the heroes are being pursued by Billy, the villains make their way onto a bus. The bus driver calls them beautiful, and they seem to respond to it pretty well. Maybe they'd be a lot more chill if everyone stopped insulting them. Just a thought. So the bus driver asks what they desire, to which Winnie says,
Children.
Hey, that may take me a couple of tries, but I don't think that'd be a problem.
The manhole cover at the end of their subterranean journey ends up right in the bus's path, and Binks ends up getting run over by the bus. The others are heartbroken by seeing the lifeless Binks, particularly Danny, until Binks returns to life.
I told you I can't die.
Did you guys know I cannot die?
The witches get off the bus and end up in what they think is the devil's house, but of course it's just a guy dressed up for Halloween. While inside, some trick-or-treaters dressed up as the Sanderson sisters swipe their brooms. Max and Danny track down their parents, as well as most of the adults in Salem, at a costume party with a band of spooky, scary skeletons and everything. But honoring what might be the biggest horror trope of all time, no one believes their story. The situation doesn't even improve when the witches and Billy show up, since everyone just thinks that they have excellent costumes. The sisters even take a quick break from their pursuit to give the party an absolute banger.
I put a spell on you. And now you're mine.
And this song is actually a spell, causing the parents to continue dancing the night away, assuring that they won't be any help. Not that they were much of a help to begin with. The four heroes run to their school after hatching a plan. Using a boombox playing some French lessons on tape, the not-so-tech-savvy witches are lured into a walk-in pottery kiln thinking there's actually someone in there. You see, children's safety was a pretty low priority in 1993, so the school has a lockable fire chamber big enough for an entire classroom to fit in. The heroes flip the switch, burning the witches alive. But this is only a minor setback for the witches, I guess because the spell keeps them alive for the night. so they're only turned to green smoke for about 2 minutes before they return and continue their pursuit. On their way through the streets, Mary thinks she smells Max, but it turns out that it's only his shoes, still being worn by the bully. The sisters strangely apologize for the confusion and are on their way until the other bully calls them
the ugly chicks that stay out late. Chicks.
Smash cut to both bullies in cages back at the Sanderson sisters' house. Winnie attempts to perform the spell to gain immortality with the bullies, but she realizes she can't remember the spell without the spell book. The sisters give up hope and are ready to admit defeat. Lucky for them, the heroes still think that the witches are gone for good, and so they see no harm from opening the spell book. While they do learn that a circle of salt can protect against the witches, even more harm is done in the opening, which alerts the sisters where to go to retrieve it. But the sisters are missing their traditional broomsticks, so as they fly off, Winnie uses a modern broom, Sarah uses a mop, and Mary uses a vacuum cleaner. After Max and Allison go downstairs to arm themselves with salt, they head upstairs to find a jump scare! The sisters are in the house. They've got Danny, Binks, and the spell book. Sarah sticks her tongue out at Allison, and then the sisters literally blow the roof off Max and Danny's house. On their way back to their own house, Sarah bewitches all the children of Salem to mindlessly shamble towards their house. The sisters have whipped up a new brew for the soul-stealing ritual. Max and Allison head over back to the witch's abode to save Danny, Binks, and even his shoes, leaving the bullies in their cages. They pull this off by convincing the three that they have saved some daylight time, which is actually just their car's headlights. On the way out, Max knocks over the cauldron, leaving just enough for one kid. The crew absconds to the cemetery once again, where Billy finally catches up to them. But Billy actually just wants the knife to cut open his mouth stitches so he can call Winnie a
wench. Trollop, you buck-toothed, mop-riding firefly from hell! I've waited centuries to say that.
The sisters start a final confrontation in the cemetery, where they've placed Danny in a salt circle to protect her. After Winnie attacks Billy, beheading him once again, which causes Danny to leave her circle to help him. Winnie seizes the opportunity to nab Danny, and then Binks sacrifices himself to save her by knocking the potion out of Winnie's hand. Max grabs it and gets Winnie to take the heat off Danny by drinking the potion himself. Winnie then attempts to steal Max's soul, but his resistance makes Mary want to help her sister. Allison, Danny, and Billy all grab onto Mary's vacuum cleaner cord to stop her. Sarah comes to help Mary, but then they let go of the cord to send Mary and Sarah careening by Winnie, which causes her to lose her grasp of Max and the broom, so they both fall. Winnie attempts to finish the ritual, but now that she is standing on the hollowed ground, she turns to stone. Then the sun rises and all three sisters explode in their appropriate colors.
Damn, that was an intricate battle sequence.
As the movie ends, Billy gets to return to his slumber. But then Danny sees that Binks has actually perished. She is brokenhearted until she sees the ghost of Thackeray, now returned to his human form, who is finally reunited with the ghost of his sister Emily. The two pass on after saying their thanks and goodbyes. We also see that their parents and the rest of the adults are finally free of the dancing spell and walk home. The bullies are still hung up in their cages, and the spellbook's eye is still moving, indicating that if the sisters can return after 300 years, maybe they could return in another 29 years or so. My recommendation for another review this week is the Cosmonaut Variety Hour. The channel covers a lot of different movies, video games, and shows. They're usually commentary pieces talking about a particular work or general trend. Their video on Hocus Pocus is a live reaction where they're cracking jokes.
Me when I smell gamer girl toes. That's my dick when she asks for round 2.
There's also a lot of thirstiness for Sarah.
It's a good angle. It's a good shot of her. It's a good scene.
Relatable.
I really enjoyed this video. Check it out, the link's in the description. So this wasn't one of those children's scary stories where the early deaths are reverted, like Ernest Scared Stupid. Emily and Thackeray actually don't get to live normal lives. The witches are hanged and then they explode. And while it happens before the events of the movie, Billy is killed because he traded his Sanderson sister in for a newer model. That, combined with the macabre atmosphere and a couple of jump scares, makes this a horror movie in my book. Plus, the heroes are in danger from these sinister sisters who we already know can really mess them up. But who out there could be too scared to watch this movie?
And how could you not like this movie? I mean, this...
Should bussin' on God, respectfully.
Therefore, everyone should like at least one horror film, so don't let anyone get away with telling you that they don't like scary movies. And you know what? The next one is barely going to be scarier. Is that going to be where you stop? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you can see the next video when it goes live. Share this video so you don't have to go on this journey alone. Comment if you think there are any good scary movies that are actually less scary than this one. I'm interested if anything else can be this perfect at being a just barely scary movie. And here's a spell I'll put on you. You will push that like button.
See you next time, dearies!